Hello, welcome to Wednesday. I'm Erin. I'm the founder and chief sommelier here at the Wine Sisters, and welcome to another Wine Wednesday with the Wine Sisters, or at least one sister, because that's kind of how we're rolling in these lockdown times. I have a really different episode tonight that I'm super excited about, and I hope that you're just as excited. All of January, this month's theme is all about, as you know, this month's theme is all about improvement and ideas and inspiration, whatever form that may take for you, as people have a want to start to think about these things when the calendar year flips, maybe even more so during this particular year. So last week, you guys will remember we had a plant-based winemaker, Dean Stoyka, one of my favorite friends and guests. He talked about his own health journey. Next week, we're going to be having our favorite tarot card reader, Kait Fowlie. She's going to be returning and helping us visualize some really great stuff for 2021. We've got some entrepreneurs on the show that are going to be coming up. All ideas that are going to help you or try to help you sit back with a glass of wine and maybe give you some inspiration for whatever changes you want to make in your life. And even if you don't want to make any changes, then awesome for you. But maybe what you want to do is you want to just sit around and listen to a really great story. So we've got that. Tonight, I'm so happy because we've got an amazing guest. Elizabeth Naumovski, who is the host of Finance is Personal. This is a great YouTube show. Definitely go check it out. Not now, after the stream ends. But Elizabeth is going to be here. Oh, I can see that she's just coming in right now. She's also a financial literacy advocate. And hey, listen, we've all had a really tough year with some surprises financially and otherwise. So we're going to see if we can get, we can do a bit about that. So we're just waiting for the connection to kick in, and then Liz will be joining us in just another second or two. Of course, we're going to be doing this with a huge drink. Hello, Liz, you beautiful thing.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm fantastic. You got on just fine. You were worried that you'd never done an Instagram Live.
You know, it's so funny, Erin, because since last February, I have been on different social media every month. Mm-hmm. And back in February of 2020, Zoom was my first, live broadcast.
Right.
Believe it, and now it's become a part of our lives. And yeah, this is my first Instagram Live. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, fantastic. First of all, let's get to the most important stuff, because we're going to be talking about money and finances. But what are you drinking? Because you can't talk about money without pouring yourself a huge drink.
Huge drink?
What is it?
It is a red. It's local. So I don't even know, but because it is, I'm not even going to say what it is because it's red. Local. We decided to shop local when we were in all the lockdowns, and all of the local wineries actually deliver to your home, and they have sales on cases. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they deliver for free and they have sales on cases. And that's what we've been doing throughout COVID.
Brilliant. And I think, because not only, and I've said this all along, because we've been doing these Instagram Lives, as longtime viewers and listeners will know, we've been doing these Instagram Lives since March, and really pounding that drum of support local, not just because it's the thing to do and okay, I'm going to throw them a bone because it's charitable and I'm a good person, but because these wines are excellent. So door-to-door delivery, you don't even have to lug it home yourself. Free delivery with a minimum order. And let's face it, like, who's going to order one bottle? Like, in some cases it's a minimum of like 6, totally fine. And, then on top of that, further sales on the bottles themselves. So win-win-win for everybody, I say.
You know what? I totally agree with you. Years ago, I would have said I was not fond of local wines. However, those vines have really, they've matured a lot through the years, and they're actually really, really good. They're comparable to any other wine, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Mr. Andrew Hod, a mutual friend of both of ours, who has just tuned in and given us a thumbs up, because I suspect he's drinking heavily as well, which is perfect. You're right, and we'll finish up this quick thought on the wines as well. But back when I became a sommelier about 12 years ago, And I worked, before I opened up the Wine Sisters, I was working for other people in restaurants and event spaces and things like that. And back in those days, you would say to people, oh, Michelle Hod is here as well, also giving us a thumbs up, his partner in crime, who is clearly drinking right alongside him. Maybe they've got one of those cool hats, you know, with the straws, and each has a straw. I don't know. So I know they're sports fans, so they probably have a couple of things like that. But anyway, but back in the day, you'd say to people, hey, who here likes Ontario wine? And people would sheepishly kind of be like, maybe a third of the room. Oh, I do. I'm sorry. You know, I'm a bit embarrassed. But now you say, who here likes Ontario wine? And 99.9% of the room puts up their hands. It's only some weird outlier who, you know, I don't want to pick on the person who doesn't like Ontario wine because, you know, drink what you love. And we certainly don't need any charity over here. But really, I think if you haven't revisited Ontario wine and you've got those limiting beliefs, you should probably revisit. That's what I think.
And I think, you know, it's almost like a double gift, because you are shopping local and so many people have been hurt during COVID. So many corporations, small business entrepreneurs. I mean, let's just sit there. If we have to go out and spend some money, let's spend some money locally and help out, you know, the local guys that employ all of the local people.
Yeah, maybe we can let the big box stores, I mean, they are taking a hit in Ontario by having to close 30 minutes earlier, but you know, maybe we can do something in Sport Local. I'm going to tell you that I am sipping, look how gorgeous this is. So I don't know if you caught this. I know you know this, Liz, that I show up on television, well, actually pretty frequently. I'm the drinks expert for The Social and as well the wine expert for CTV's Your Morning. And I was just on yesterday talking about ice wine and talking about, this is something that I'm absolutely loving. This is called an Ice Cosmo. I thought I invented it because I thought I was a mixology wizard. And it turns out that there's lots of people who also invented it. But my intentions were there. So this is beautiful. This is a combination of Cabernet Sauvignon ice wine, cranberry juice, lime juice, and good quality vodka. So Santé, my friend, thank you for joining me.
Na zdravia.
Na zdravia. I love that. Okay, so let's talk cold hard cash, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first of all, I want to know, what's your money philosophy? Like, one of the things that confuses people and it's just so cumbersome and so heavy. You know, this guy says, don't spend on the latte. That guy says, do spend on the latte. This person says, squirrel away 10% of your paycheck. This person says, you know, it gets to be just so much. So what's you, Liz, host of Finances Personal, what's your personal finance philosophy?
So it's pretty simple, actually.
Okay.
Number one, cash is king. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. And that's something that my father instilled in me when I was really, really little.
Wow.
And, you know, don't spend more than you have, right?
I don't like where this is going. I don't like where this is going.
Are you going to hang up on me now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, thanks. It was fun talking to you. We'll chat another time.
Yeah.
But seriously, I think especially how everyone has been hit so hard right now with COVID. You know, I've been talking about making frugality fashionable. So live a frugal and simple life and only spend for what you need, especially right now, right? A lot of people are having trouble putting food on their table, paying their bills, paying the rent, whatever it is. I mean, everyone's going through their own personal hell when you're looking at COVID right now. And so you have to take a look and see how much money you have and what you're going to do with it. So cash is king. If you have it and you can afford to buy something, then go ahead and do it. But if you can't, I think you should probably just sit back and think about where your money can be used better.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, but we had a question come in. I put up a question board on the Instagram stories on the Wine Sisters Instagram, asking people for their money questions. And, you know, this is a common one where people are saying, you know what, Liz, that's all very fine and good, but listen, I find that I have a whole lot more month than I do money. And I'm not going on clearly. I'm not going on cruises. I'm not going to the mall. I'm not getting my nails done. There's nothing extra to spend on, but I don't have enough to even cover what I've got. So how does this even make sense? How can you even say live frugally when I'm literally I'm right to the bone?
You know, I totally see that. I have a really good friend of mine who owns Beauty Babe Lounge, and I get my eyelashes done there when we're not in lockdown.
Right.
And she's a single mom of a 4-year-old, right?
Mm.
So this poor woman has to pay her home rent, her business rent. She's got to come up with creative stuff. But how can you work on people's lashes when you're locked at home? So I've talked to friends about this.
Right.
And, you know, you just have to do the best with what you have, right? I understand if you're only making, I'm just going to throw this number out, $1,000 a month, but, you know, you're spending $1,200 a month. You're $200 in the hole every month. And you're not going to get out of that hole until you start working again and you're able to pay your bills and get out of that.
Right.
One of the key things is don't put everything on your credit cards, because a lot of people just put things on their credit cards and pretend it's not there. But credit cards, I mean, they charge, is it 29% and it's compounded? You know, try to see if you can get a personal loan. Try, you know, if you have a mortgage, try to go to the bank and say, listen, I'm having a really hard time. Can you please, can we please re-look at my monthly mortgage payments and see whether I can afford, you know, do something that'll help me right now. There's nothing wrong with going to your cell company, the mortgage company, or whoever it is, and just say, hey, having some tough times. Can we just please rejig whatever it is that I have to pay? Can I go on a cheaper plan? Because right now, these companies know that people have been struggling, and it's better to get some money than no money. So hopefully they'll be on that, you know, the proper process with you.
But you know, and listen, you've been on Bay Street for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you
23.
know, 23. So you started when you were 8, which is fantastic because you look amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Those eyelashes. You know, you go down Bay Street in Toronto, of course, for people who are beaming in from elsewhere, the financial district.
Which is the equivalent of Wall Street. I just want to say it's the equivalent of Wall Street in New York.
Yeah. And so that means being the equivalent of Wall Street in New York. There's a lot of shiny cars. There's a lot of power suits. There's a lot of really expensive lunches. And I know that because I used to be a server on Bay Street. And there's a lot of, well, I guess there's expense accounts that are hitting the table with your black Amexes and stuff like that. But you know, I think there's a really sexy lure for North Americans in general that it's all very fine and say, whoa, don't spend it if you don't got it. But when everyone else around you, your work colleagues, not even your neighbors, but you can't look stupid in front of your work colleagues. You need to get that promotion. You need to impress the boss. You need a seat at the table. So if everyone else is wearing a designer suit, you better show up in a designer suit too. How do you manage that?
So I always buy everything on sale. I never pay full price unless it's something that never ever goes on sale and it's that one staple piece. But I never buy anything unless it is on sale. And it's got to be a pretty good sale too. I'll keep, you know, here's an example. There was a designer store down the street from where I live, and they were having they were closing up the location here in the West End and transferring everything up to Rosedale, I think. And everything in the store was $99. So I ended up buying a dress that was $1,200 for $99.
I love that.
Yeah. So I never buy anything because I need it. If I like, to me, I'm very tactile. I need therapy a lot. So I work out, I paint, and I like to touch things. So if I go into a store when we're not in lockdown, I like to go and I'm a tailor's daughter, so I touch material. That's just one of my weird things. And so I will go to, you know, a store if I know that they're having a big sale, and I'll go in and I'll take a look at stuff and I'll try it on. And yeah, do I need that dress? No, but it was $99. Is $99 really going to break my bank account? No, it's not. So I'd rather spend $99 than $1,200. And one of the key things, if you look at what Warren Buffett has said, he said, price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Yeah. So I paid $99 for a dress that's $1,300. And quite frankly, when I wear that dress, there's no price tag on it, so nobody knows how much it cost. They know that it's a nice looking dress, but no one knows that I paid $99 for it.
Right. Well, okay. So when we're talking about that, now that's a budgetary decision that you've made because you've decided that for whatever your budget is, the $99 works for you. But what we're talking about though is that, you know, and there's a lot of, I know that there was in Toronto Life, I believe it was, ran a series they ran this really great front page piece that all the poor people really got smug about. But living in debt is not just a so-called like living below the poverty line. A lot of people, regardless of your income level, according to this article, you're one paycheck away from going broke. So as they say, more money, more problems. Like now all of a sudden you've got swanky golf club memberships, you've got a nanny, you've got a housekeeper, you've got a pool boy. I would have a pool boy even if I didn't have a pool boy. Yeah, like you know, and if you're going to be somebody, so regardless of your income level, what are some tactile things that people can do? And actually there was another article out about financial planners who work at banks or wherever they work, and they are also, they're saying one thing and living another way. And so everybody seems to be in the same boat where finances is just when you can maybe manage it for somebody else, but to try and do it for yourself, regardless of what your income level is, regardless of what your education is, and regardless of what your profession is, it's really challenging for everybody, especially when, you know, if everybody else, if you're trying to, like, if you want to tee off with the boss, you better have that swanky golf club membership. Otherwise you're left behind, right?
So, you know, there's so many answers here. I mean, that's such a multi-level question. Number one, we are told when we're young to go to school and get really, really good grades because that'll get us into a great school. So then you go to that great school and you work really, really hard because you want that great big paying job. And then you land that big paying job and you have no idea what to do with the money that you've made, right? So FOMO and YOLO are a problem. FOMO, the fear of missing out. YOLO, you only live once. Drake always sings about YOLO, right? But you can do YOLO, you only live once, if you have a lot of money. And the problem is people are trying to outdo each other. You know, I read this article that so many people on Instagram go into debt. Why? Because they want that amazing photo and they want to one up somebody with whatever photo it is that they have. You know, there are statistics. I read this article as well that if you were to win the lottery, not only will you end up going bankrupt because you're just going to spend like crazy, but the whole block that you live on, they will all have FOMO as well, the fear of missing out, and they'll go bankrupt too. So we have to really take a look and see what we can afford in our own home. Like, Erin, I really couldn't care less if you went out and you bought something really, really expensive. I'd be really, really happy for you.
Would you?
I wouldn't go
Would you, Liz?
Absolutely.
Would you? Well, that makes you a good person.
If I do well, I want to share it. So thank you. But yeah, I would be very happy for you. And I'd go out and celebrate with you and say, hey, this is fantastic. Good for you. You've wanted this for a long time. Here you go. But, you know, we have to figure out what we do with our money. So let me ask this question. If there's somebody who makes $100,000 and spends 110, and you've got someone who's making $50,000 and spends $45,000 a year, who's better off? Clearly, the guy who's making $45,000, not the guy who's making $100,000, because he's in debt.
Okay, so then I want to get into some real, because we know that, and there's a million stories. Like Will Smith's famous story is that when he was on that show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, this is a story all about him, just to put that in everybody's mind for the rest of the night. But how he made, you know, 20 million, but was in debt like 60 million or something. And actually headlines of yesterday and today, I'm going to show my ignorance on hockey. I have a really good girlfriend who is heavily immersed as a broadcaster in the hockey world, and hope she's not watching. But there's a player, a young player. He's only about 30. I guess that means he's an old player as far as players go, but young as far as life goes. He's declaring bankruptcy, and now his bank is suing him. And I think he plays for the Sharks, and I totally forget his name, because I think when you get that massive waterfall of wealth, all of a sudden you don't know what to do, which I think speaks to financial education, which I'd like to get into. Oh, thanks, sweetie. Andrew,
Evander
that's
Kane,
my back as always.
Thank you, Andrew.
Evander Holyfield. Oh, Evander Kane. Evander Kane. There we go. So thank you, Sherry. Evander Kane. Thank you, people. I appreciate it. I said it was hockey, but
However,
I appreciate
Erin,
everybody having my back. So let's talk then quite legitimately about what are some actual tools? Some, like, maybe give me the top 3. What can people do, regardless if you're the 45 grand income earner or the $26 million a year hockey player? You said earlier before, live frugally, live within your means. What are some easy tips that people can just try to do?
Okay, so the one thing that a lot of people do when they're depressed or they're anxious or they're stressed is impulse buying. And it's so easy to just go onto your phone and tap and buy stuff, right?
My favorite.
Stop it. Stop it. Okay, no more. So stop impulse buying. I know you're going to hate me by the end of this.
No, it's
you
fine.
and I will never be friends again.
Notice how my cocktail is now empty and you haven't even taken a sip. Okay.
That's because I'm talking.
Okay.
Okay, number 1, I have 5 practical tips actually, and I have this on my website, financespersonal.ca. Number 1,
great.
Stop impulse buying, right? Because how many people out there get depressed and anxious and say, oh, if I can only go and buy this one thing, it'll make me happy. Sure, it'll make you happy for a week, a month, and then the bill comes in and you're like, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? I don't know what to do with this. So don't live in denial. If you can't afford it, don't buy it.
Okay.
I started with $5.
You know what I started doing? Just as so I mean, you're going to say the real awesome tips, and I'm going to give you my non-financial, non-expert tips at all. Tips from a drinker and tips from somebody who's awesome with money. What I've started to do is I have looked at something and I'm like, if I'm still thinking about it tomorrow, then fine. But I'm going to like it. I might even go so far as to put it in a cart, but I don't have any of my credit cards saved on my computer or anything. So it's not just, you can't just click, you've got to enter it. But my deal with myself is I need to have it. if I'm still thinking about it tomorrow, then we renegotiate with ourselves.
Now, do you give yourself a limit and say, you know, it's $100, so I don't care. It's $20, I don't care. It's $1,000. Like, what's your limit to do that?
I don't have a limit because for me personally, I find it gets dangerous is when you start doing, oh, it's $20, it's $20, $20 before you know it.
And that's a problem. You're right.
Yeah. So I do it with, like, unless I'm spending someone else's money, then sure, whatever. But if I'm spending my own.
When do we do that?
We will talk. Let me have another one of these and I'll tell you. But I'm a woman of many means. But anyway, yes, that's my tips from a drinker. So tips from a financial expert is don't impulse buy. Okay.
Right. Number 2, November is financial literacy month. So a couple of years ago, I was thinking about, you know, how to be relevant for financial literacy month. So I started the $5 a day savings program. And you had asked me about this. You were like, oh, people talk about don't buy that latte because, you know, that latte, everybody wants their latte, right?
Right.
However.
Or whatever the latte symbolizes to you.
Whatever, right? But if you save $5 a day, and this is actually, it's got to do with, what's the word? Behavioral finance, right? Okay. If I was to say to you, Erin, why don't you start putting $100 a month away, right? And just start accumulating wealth that way. You'd be like, $100? I mean, I could do a lot with $100, right?
Right.
But if you look
at saying, why don't you lose 50 pounds as opposed to saying, why don't you aim for losing a pound this week? Right?
Right. So $5 a day. After 21 days, it becomes a habit. So you automatically, like if so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, they pull their money out, whatever. Start putting $5 a day in a jar, in your sock drawer, your underwear drawer, whatever it is. Put it somewhere so that you can start building an emergency fund. By the end of the year, if you were to save $5 a day, by the end of the year, you will have saved $1,825. That's in 1 year.
We're going to go back to that because I do want to talk about that and the impact of $1,825. But I don't want to get off the topic of the top 5 things you can do. So I like that.
So if you do that for 5 years, you're looking at $9,130. And in 10 years, you saved over $18,000. So that is a great emergency fund, and that $5 a day, it's doable. And you know what'll happen? You'll start doing $5 a day, you'll kind of forget about that money. That $100
well, as
is actually
my Vera story says, automatic transfers, of course.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So $5 a day. If you can't pay off your credit cards, don't pay off
Why
just
are you
the
looking at
minimum.
me, Liz? What the hell?
Because I like you.
Okay.
And you're, we're like right here.
Okay.
But,
all right, so you have your credit card.
A lot of people have credit card debt, and I'm going to tell this story, and it'll probably freak out a lot of people.
Love it.
So we had our wedding at Vantage Venues. That's how I know Andrews. I love those guys. We did a virtual cooking class with them last night, and it was fabulous. Anyway, I had my wedding July 2019, so prior to COVID and everything else.
Right. Okay.
And the final bill was the alcohol bill, which was $11,000.
Good girl, Liz. Well done.
My friends are awesome. Yeah. So I get my credit card statement and I looked at it, and it said I could pay the minimum $10 a month. And most people look at the minimum on their credit card statements and they're like, okay, well, this is great. I'll pay $10 a month and it'll just keep going. But the problem is, if I was to pay off $11,000 at $10 a month, it would take me 109 years. So never mind how much that $11,000 initial bill is going to cost. It's a lifetime times 10 payment, right?
Yeah.
So if you have credit card debt, do not pay off just the minimum. If the minimum's $10, if you can do 50 or 100, do that, because you'll be able to pay it off faster and you won't be a slave to it. Okay.
I like that, because sometimes, and I want to still keep up with the top 5. I do remember once when I was still in school, when I was still in university. So the person who was, I actually had a bit of a banker. I don't know why, but oh, and I should say hi to Hummingbird. She just waved, so hello, Hummingbird. They said, no matter what, don't miss a payment. Even if you can only make the minimum, do the minimum. Or even if your minimum's like $100, even if you can only put down $10, make sure you put down something so your credit doesn't go in the trash. But what about, and so I will ask you this, put a pin in it, because I want to keep on with this top 5 things. But what about for now, when things are really challenging, maybe you're accepting some CERB payments, whatever, which is completely legit. Maybe right now you just do the minimum until you can get yourself back on your feet. We'll talk about that in a second. But so far for your top 5, you said spend within your means.
Yeah, no impulse shopping.
No impulse shopping. Oh, sorry. So no impulse shopping was number 1.
Save $5 a day.
Save $5 a day.
Do not pay more than just the minimum on your credit card.
Okay.
Don't get sucked into FOMO and YOLO.
Is that point number 4?
You can. Yeah. Point number 4, don't get sucked. Live a disciplined life, right? Like that's what I'm talking about here. It's so easy. I mean, I remember when I bought my house 21 years ago, I struggled. I bought a big house, and there was a lot going on before I bought the house. Anyway, I have this house and I'm struggling. And it was, you go out with your friends, you go out drinking, you go out for dinners, and, get a group of girls, get a group of guys. It doesn't matter. I mean, every Friday, Saturday night, you wanted to go out.
I believe they call that caterwauling.
Okay. Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
No.
Okay. But anyway, so you bought the house and you're struggling to figure it out.
I decided to email all my friends and just say, I'm not going to go out right now. I can't afford it. I need to concentrate on my bills. So I didn't go out for a couple of months, and I started saving that money that I would have spent for, dinner Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and drinking, because it all adds up.
It does, but I feel like you've got incredible restraint. Like, I don't know anybody else who has that kind of restraint. I think FOMO is real.
Strategic. Yeah, I'm pretty strategic though. Yeah.
How did you get this way? Like you mentioned your dad, because quite honestly, like and I'm not, trust me, I am not putting shame on anyone. This is not, that's not
No,
the name of
there's
this
no
game.
shame. I
There's
mean,
no shame here.
this is supposed to be educational and helpful. There is
Yeah.
no shame. And, everybody is struggling, as I said, in their own personal hell right now. And so we're here. There's no shame.
No
Keep
shame.
going.
I don't even know how to
Okay,
spell shame.
so how did I get? Okay, I'm going to backtrack now to my mom and dad.
Right.
My mom and dad met December 31st. They were engaged the next day, which is January 1st. February 11th, they got married. And at the time, they were living in Yugoslavia, which no longer exists, but part of Macedonia. And so they escaped and they left there. And
good
they
wine
slept
heritage there, just so you know, like a good ancient wine heritage in what was Macedonia, just so you know.
So yeah, I've been to a lot of the wineries there. They're pretty good. Okay, so they escaped. They lived on park benches. They were in a displaced persons camp.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they were in a
what displaced year was it?
1962.
Right. This was a really, this is not,
yeah. So they got on a boat, and however many weeks it was, the boat took them to a port in Montreal. And then they got there in November 1962 in the middle of the night, and they took them off the boat onto a train and shipped them to Toronto.
Did they
so
speak
they arrived in, no, so that's part of my story.
Oh, okay.
So they arrived in Toronto, just the two of them, speaking Macedonian, which doesn't help you with English. It's a Cyrillic language. It's like not anyone on the street, you can converse with.
Yeah.
They had one suitcase, $125 between the two of them. And so what did they have to do? They borrowed the money from a church in Chicago that paid for their boat trip to Canada. So they knew that they had to pay back the debt. They knew they had to find a place to live, and they had to find a job. And so they did find a job. My mom was cleaning houses. My father started out working at a restaurant, washing dishes, and he was a tailor by trade. And he started working at Tip Top Tailors. But what they did was they saved every penny. And I know growing up, people didn't like pennies. They just throw them on the street. But me as a little girl, I'd see the pennies and I'd pick them up and hang on to them. And, my mother always taught me, you should save every penny, because you never know whether you'll have a job going forward, and you need to save for your future. And my father always said, cash is king. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. So that's how I grew up. And that's always been, instilled in my brain from the get-go. So yeah, my upbringing was a little bit different than others.
Can I add to that if you don't mind? Would that be okay? I paid for my end of high school trip, my history trip, when I was 18 years old in high school. The senior classes of history did a trip to Washington every year. And so you knew that you were going to go on, it was going to be in May, and you knew in September that you were going to go, and it was going to cost you like $300 or something.
Right.
And so what I said, in order to help me pay for it, and of course my parents would pay for it, but to get the spending money and to try, I said to all of my friends, if you guys don't want your pennies, just give them to me. And and it became a thing where people thought it was super hilarious, and people would come and they'd give me handfuls of pennies. And I swear to you, by May, and this is just for high school kids, collecting people's pennies that they didn't want after buying fries in the cafeteria.
Right.
And I had $350 in pennies. It was a bitch to roll. Like that stuff. but yeah, so I paid for my trip to Washington with pennies that I collected all year from people who didn't want them.
But do you remember back then a penny was worth a lot more? I mean, I remember at Halloween walking around with a little UNICEF box.
Yeah.
And people would always have bowls of pennies by their front door to, help the kids in UNICEF.
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't do that anymore.
No, they don't, because those boxes became so heavy and it took up valuable weight from your candy. So, okay. So, well, now that we're talking about, and I think this is great because I think I just
wait.
oh,
I have. So I stopped off at don't get sucked into FOMO and YOLO.
okay, 4.
Yeah. And the fifth one was my dad's words of wisdom: cash is king. If you can't afford it, don't buy it.
I'm going to tell you a story about my brother-in-law, and I'm glad that he doesn't have social media. He'll be so upset that I'm saying it, but it's just between you and me. My brother-in-law, who's also European and came here when he was 17 by himself, and really had to work. Like, he had nobody to provide for him. So he went to high school all day. He would work in restaurants, washing dishes. He also didn't speak English. And things, you know, when you don't speak English in a new country, we love to think that Canadians are awesome, and we are. But, you know, he had some nasty things happen where people were like, I'm not going to pay you. And who are you going to tell? Like, you're a 17-year-old kid who can't speak the language. Like, really, what's your recourse? So, but terrible, absolutely heinous. But by the time he was 24, he was able to buy his first property.
Good for him.
Right? And so if you want to think about a non-English speaking immigrant who had to do what most high school students don't have to do because they get to have the luxury of being a teenager, school all day, work all night, whatever, and he was able to sock away those pennies similar to your dad. So sometimes I think when you have too much luxury growing up, and by luxury I mean just parents who pay for things for you, when you don't have a few bumps in the night, and as we progress through this conversation, if we can, because I want to get through all these things to give people helpful tips, I'll tell you about something that my parents did for me, which was let myself get out of debt on my own, which actually proved a great life lesson when I was in my early 20s. So we've got your 5 tips, because I'm just going to quickly encapsulate them because some people are coming back in. But if people want more information, they can go to financeispersonal.ca and get these.
So if you go to financespersonal.ca under blogs, there's a whole bunch of different blogs there that'll help people.
Great. Okay, so really quickly, just the headlines would be, number 1 is?
Oh, for the practical steps?
Yeah.
Number 1 is stop impulse buying.
Okay.
Don't just buy stuff on your app and make yourself feel good.
Okay.
Save $5 per day. After 21 days, you learn a habit. If you can't pay off your credit card, pay more than just the minimum. Don't get sucked into FOMO and YOLO, and cash is king.
Okay. Liz is saying discipline is hard to instill to someone unless they face adversity. Yeah, Liz, like that's the thing, is that I think when you're blessed, sometimes that can also be a curse, because we've seen these people who are, you know, let's just pick on Hollywood celebrities because we can, and they're an easy target, but you know, there's not enough strife or challenge in their life where they end up doing crazy things and end up going to jail or driving their cars into pools or something like that. Yeah, discipline, I think there's a lot to be said for really having to buckle down. But unfortunately, a lot of people, you know, fortunately, but unfortunately, sorry, not sorry, a lot of people don't have that. Okay, so I want to ask you, Liz, because we are like this time is flying by and I'm having a ball.
Me too.
Why do you think money is such a freaky conversation for people? The reason why I ask is I was saying to somebody, somebody was I live in a condo building, and so somebody was in my elevator making small talk as we go up the elevator, and he just happened to mention, you know, 2020 was a really great year for him, despite everyone else having some hardships. And he wasn't bragging about it, but he's just making conversation. And why wouldn't you and I get it, he's a total stranger, but I thought, isn't that interesting? Why wouldn't you just say, 2020 was a really great year. I doubled my income, or I, you know, quadrupled my company's revenue, or whatever made 2020 a really great year for him. But we never talk about that. We stop short. But Ashley Graham, do you know who Ashley Graham is? She's the supermodel
She's the supermodel.
Yeah, a curvier one, and was the first curvy model in Sports Illustrated, and she's staggeringly beautiful. She created a union, not a union, that's the wrong word, but a union of sorts with other curvy models where they all revealed to each other how much money they made. So that way when they went on jobs, they could say, wait a second, you're paying her that. Why are you only paying me this? And so when knowing everybody's income actually made it a lot more of a fair playing field. So you couldn't, and there's a lot of companies that I've heard as well that are like, nope, everybody's income from the top boss down to the newest hire everybody's income is known. So that way no one, that way you know what you're dealing with. And I think that that's actually really refreshing. And if everybody was just like, hey man, I bank this or I make that, but we don't talk about that. We're very buttoned up about that. Why do you, and I think a lot of that is Canadian politeness, but what's your take on that?
You know, we all judge ourselves by what we have, right? Mm-hmm. If you can go out and buy something, you think that you're really successful. You know, you talked about the fact that you read an article about people that worked in our industry who, yeah, they can manage clients' money, but they can't manage their own and they're in debt. So it's all about the toys, right? People seem to judge themselves by the amount of toys that they have. I mean, do you really need all that? Does it make us a better person? I don't think so. Does it make us more shallow? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But I mean, I think the problem is people get freaked out by money because, I mean, how many times do you hear someone say, oh, if I only made more money, or oh, if I only married rich? Well, it doesn't mean that your problems are going to go away, right? So we put so much on money that really doesn't have an effect on our lives. I mean, you can sit there and pretend that, oh, you know, if I marry rich, you know, all my troubles will go away. But that's not your money to begin with. Nobody's going to give it to you.
Right.
So
you're going to have to work for it one way or another. Yeah.
But money freaks people out just because I guess they don't have it and they think about it way too much. And as I said, I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It's what you do with what you have. You can be in debt making $1 million a year. You can be in debt making $10,000 a year. I mean, you can't make a comparison between the two, but it's what you do with what you have. And that's why people get freaked out.
Can I also add to that? My perspective is people get freaked out about money because I think even though there's commercials on TV that suggest to you that you're richer than you think and that money's super easy and that it's actually not. If you've ever had to go and renegotiate your mortgage, or if you've ever had to go to the bank and say, you know, things are tight for me, it's not a welcoming, happy environment. They're not like rolling out the donuts and coffee for you and saying, hey, you know, you're made to feel small. And for example,
there's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy. So I'm not shy about this at all. I had to my mortgage was up for renewal in 2019, and I bought my house 13 years ago, and so, you know, Toronto real estate being what it is, it's worth considerably more than what it was when I purchased it. But despite that, I'm still an entrepreneur. I work for myself. The Wine Sisters is my company. And I also, back in the day, and I will again, right now it's on hiatus, but I teach at George Brown College, a couple of courses, 1 to 2, 3, depending on the semester and what my mood is. I teach at George Brown College as well. The amount of hoops I had to jump through for this bank, even though I've never missed a mortgage payment, the place is worth 10 times more than it was when I bought it. You know, all of the positives and the check marks in the box. And so when my banker called me up and you know, and they sent somebody and they reevaluated and they did all these things. And I had to send, it was so humiliating and it made me feel so small. They said, we need to see your top 5 contracts of what you're projecting for this year. We need to see the top 5 contracts of what you did last year. We need to see your tax.
You need to renew your mortgage?
Yeah. We need to see that you've paid all of your taxes. And I'm like, well, I paid them directly through my bank account, so you can see it, like, 'cause you've got that information. But I have to go to the government and get some sort of form and do all these. So anyway, so, you know, a couple weeks goes by and the banker calls, and they're just like the whatever Joe Blow banker, and they go, well, I feel really good about this. We're getting closer, and I feel really good about this. And I said, well, I'm glad you feel good about it, because I'm glad one of us feels good about it, because the other one of us feels really humiliated and small. So great. I'm glad that you feel great about it. And if there was another recourse for me, I would seriously consider taking my mortgage elsewhere, because this is bullshit. You know, and then I got the mortgage and whatever. But this is why money freaks people out, because it's not a comfortable conversation, not only because people are, you know, some people deal with being afraid. But you're not made to feel that you're richer than you think. Yeah. You're actually made to feel like you're a bigger asshole than you think.
Yeah, it is tough. And if truth be told, I actually went to a credit union when I had to get my mortgage. And at that time when I was struggling, a few years after I bought my house, I was struggling. I actually talked to the people at the credit union and said, listen, I'm struggling and I'm having a really hard time. And they said, okay, how about if we do this for you? Will that help you out? And I said, yes. And so when I need to borrow money, when I need to do anything, I do go to a credit union.
Really? So let's talk about that, because I love how this is now going to hopefully leave people who are watching this now and people who will be watching this on IGTV, because we will have this on replay forever, or until Instagram goes out of business, which will probably be never. This will be on replay. Why did you choose a credit union over traditional banks? If you can talk about that, so somebody maybe is probably in the same shoes that you were in 20 years ago, where they're like, oh shit, things are not great.
It's interesting. At the time when I was going to buy my house, I'd saved my money, down payment. I had called the bank and called them, left a voicemail, called them. They never called me back. And when I had gone into the branch, they said, oh, no problem here. Call this person. It never happened. And through work, we had some sort of, not an affiliation, but we had a really good relationship with this credit union. And I go to them for everything now. And they are kinder, they're gentler, they listen, and they're very helpful. And with credit unions, you pay, I think it's $25, and you're actually a member. It's a membership. Yeah. And so it's almost like you own a membership in the credit union. So they are kinder and gentler. Well, I have found that they are through the years.
I've heard this more than once, that people who can get their mortgages or big loans, that credit unions are better than traditional banks, because the interest rates are generally better, the repayment options are generally better, and they're just generally more pleasing.
And you talk to people, right? There's not, you don't have to press 1 or 2 or whatever. And that has been my personal experience. And so anytime I need to, get a line of credit or whatever, it's always been through a credit union. And quite frankly, I pick up the phone and I talk to them, they call you back, they email you, and you get it all done.
So Liz is asking, do credit unions have the same business model as banks, or are they not for profit?
I don't know. I know that there's a membership, and I know that they don't have, if you need a large loan, you probably won't get it because they don't have the capacity for it. I think they're better for the smaller loans, but I can't answer that question. However, there's tons of credit unions in Canada. Go Google them and see who they are, and just compare them, because they're pretty good.
Now, let's get back to what people can, so when we were talking about that, now somebody did say earlier, so you were talking about saving that $5 a day, and I know for a fact if that person's listening, they're like, I don't have $5 a day. I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Where can somebody start? And because I also wanted to circle back to this, because $1,800, I mean, I wouldn't throw it down a sewer, but I'm not retiring on $1,800. Like, it's a noble, but where does this even out? Like $1,800 in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's better to have it than not, of course, but.
Well, okay, so we're going to go back to what you had said at the very beginning of the show. And you said that there's so many people that were making a lot of money, not a lot of money, and were like one paycheck away from not being able to pay any of their bills.
Right.
So this is what we're looking at as an emergency fund, right? Something happens, you break a leg, you need some surgery, and you need to go and get yourself some crutches or whatever it is.
You need to replace the fridge.
A new roof on your home, replace the fridge, new tires, like winter tires on your car, whatever it is. $1,800 in the grand scheme of things doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got Canadians that are spending $1.81 to every dollar that they make, $1,800 is a lot of money. And over 10 years, it's $18,000. And
how much it's funny. How much do people have in their emergency fund? You hear 3 months worth of expenses, 6 month worth of expenses. And you can take a sip of your wine at any time, Liz. I'm just sitting here drinking by myself.
I will. You know what? People say 3 to 6 months is good, but as you said, if you don't even have $5 a day to put aside, start with $1, start with 50 cents, just start putting it away, because if you have change in your pocket, put it aside, because it accumulates, right? Do anything that will help you at this particular time, because there are some people, as you said, as your friend said, or the person that you said, COVID has been great, I've never made so much money. And there are a lot of people out there that are struggling, thinking, oh my God, not only can they not pay their bills, but now they're dealing with anxiety, mental health, stress. It's compiling. It's too much to deal with right now. So
another
what we
quick
need
aside,
to do.
another quick aside about putting your change in a jar, although nobody pays with cash anymore. So take a big long gulp of that wine, because I'm almost done my second cocktail. But when I was in high school, so back when we were using cash way more, because I actually was alive when debit card came to be, and everyone was like, what do you mean you use your bank card to pay? It was a very confusing time. But where I was working, Le Chateau, when I was a teenager, but one of the guys I worked with, one of the guys I worked with, he saved up his change all year long. And then at the end of the year, he used all that change that he dumped out of his pocket into a jar. He used that to buy all of his Christmas presents with, because that's such a huge expense for a lot of people when the holidays roll around.
Jen actually has a really good idea. Sell items that you don't need. And so many people are doing that right now on Kijiji or Facebook or whatever. However, there's a caveat. Do not have people come to your home to exchange, or you don't want people to know where you're living. You don't want people to know that you're a single woman. There's so many things that you don't want strangers to know. So if you do end up selling something on Kijiji or whatever the site is, meet at your local police department's parking lot.
Oh, wow.
That's the place to go and exchange things.
Wow. Okay.
Because you'll be safe.
Cool. You might pick up a cop while you're there. You never know. Like, if you're a single woman or a single man or single anybody. Or if you're married. I don't know. Let's get into that conversation before I get
just move along. Just go.
Moving right along. Okay, so start with where you're at. So if you don't have the $5, see if you can take 50 cents. There's no shame in the game. Try and build an expense account, And as
Jen said, start selling off stuff that you're not using. I mean, everyone is working from home right now. No one's getting dressed up to go to a gala or go out for dinner with their friends, other than getting dressed up with tiaras for a Zoom or whatever. Sell off stuff that you don't need, because if you don't need it, there's always a market. Somebody does.
Now, when you say build this emergency account, what's more important, building the emergency account or getting rid of that credit card debt that you were talking about?
Yeah, see, I always believe that you should get rid of all your debt. However, there's a lot of people with a lot of debt, and it's impossible to save money right now when you're just, you're trying to put food on your table. So if you do have a lot of debt, try to pay it down. As I said, don't just do a minimum, pay more than the minimum. Try to get rid of your debt.
I heard this theory, and I like this theory, but tell me from an expert what you think. I heard that, let's say you have, 2 or 3 credit cards, which isn't unusual for people these days. When you have the department store credit card, which is going to be that 29%er, and you have maybe that random Visa, which is going to only be the 11 or 12%er. Pay off, but regardless of the percentages, pay off the smallest amount first. So you got 3 credit cards. One has 20 grand on it. Another has 7 grand on it. And another has 1,000 on it. Obviously, I'm making up these numbers. Pay off 1,000, because that gives you a little win in your corner, right? And then you feel great. And then you can get rid of that. And then you move on to the next one. And then you move on to the next one. How would you manage that? Because just pay off little bits of this and that, that's not going to get you anywhere. So
I would go to the credit union and get a small line of credit and pay them all off.
You're the expert, Liz. This is
I don't know about that, but I would pay them all off, because you know, the loan that you get, I don't know what it would be, the interest rate, but you know, maybe 5, even 10%, it's less than 29. So you need to consolidate so that you can focus on one payment and get rid of it too.
Okay. So if you've got debt and you also don't have an emergency savings, your first order of business is to get rid of the debt ASAP. And how you can do that, if you really want to, which you should really want to, is go to a financial institution, A, that will accept you and give you a loan, but B, hopefully a financial institution that has the best possible deal for you. Chances are that's a credit union.
And Jen is saying, you know, go to the bank to consolidate your credit cards. I mean, it depends on what bank you've got your credit card from, right? So yeah, you should go to the bank and say, listen, I'm struggling, let's consolidate. Because just, my mother always said, if you don't know, ask. There's nothing wrong with asking every institution, whether it's your cell phone or whatever. You know, back in, I think it was March 2020, I was looking at oh, by the way, look at your credit card statement every month.
Can't make me.
I know a lot of people, yeah, I can. I know a lot of people don't look at it. They get their credit card statement and kind of put it away. But take a look and see how much money you're actually paying for certain things that you've got monthly payments for. You know, I was looking at the security company that we have, the alarm company, and noticed that I was paying a lot of money and it had escalated. So I called them up to cancel. And not only did they drop, you know, the price from $40 a month to $25 a month, they came and installed a brand new up-to-date security system. So
I had the same thing happen to me with my cell phone bill. And my cell phone bill, excuse me, my cell phone bill was creeping up and creeping up. And hang on one sec. So my cell phone bill was creeping up. So I called my cell phone provider. And they said, oh, well, you've got this outdated plan, and that's why it's more expensive. My cell phone bill dropped by, I don't know, 75%, because it's all rolled into one, your cell phone, your internet, all that stuff. But anyway, what really made me upset with this company, because I've been with the provider for, 15 years or something. And I said, well, why wouldn't it be on you then? Because if I'm supposed to be such a cherished client, why wouldn't you have just been like, oh, she's on a plan that we've now
asked the same questions
and bump it up and put me to the one that makes more sense for me. Oh, well, that's on you. Oh, so it's on me to go through the tree, to spend an hour. And it's so, at least for me, I'm like, oh, I'll deal with it tomorrow because I don't have an hour to spend on the phone today. It's such a drag. But your security company was my cell phone bill, where it just kept. So I now put a little note in my calendar. Every 6 months, I check in and I'm like, what can we do about this bill? Anything that I can tweak here to make it better for me? And I don't love spending an hour on the phone, but I love it when I get the next bill.
And see, there's a couple of things here. Number one, look at your monthly payments on your credit card statement, because you might be surprised at how much you're paying for something on a monthly basis. Number two, make sure that if you've canceled a company, they're still not charging you. And people don't look at their credit card statements, and that's really important. But the other thing is, and it just has escaped me right now. I think I'm going to have some wine and you can talk.
You have some wine, and I'll tell you about this as well. Make sure you look at your credit card bill, because how many things have you signed up for that trial, and then you've forgotten about it, and now you're 6 months in and you're paying $19.99 for the, I don't know, that gym app, or or the cooking membership, or the whatever, and you really don't use it. Even if you are somebody who has those memberships and you get the socks of the month or whatever. I said socks, what you put on your feet, the socks of the month, and you no longer need those socks, well, then cancel. Like, just don't keep hanging on to it. Get rid of it.
The other thing too that's really important is, I was looking at all my expenses back in, March 2020, and I used to have a home line, and I got rid of that.
Home line
thing is a home line, telephone.
Oh, a home line.
Telephone, home line. And so I got rid of that. But the interesting thing is the company still owed me $8.50 or whatever it was. and their corporate policy is not to pay you automatically if it's under $10. So how many people don't look at the statement? Because on the statement it says, we still owe you $8.50. Now, can you imagine if thousands of Canadians cancel and it's under $10, how much money this corporation is keeping?
Yeah, companies bank on that, for sure.
So we really need to understand our invoices and our bills, and we really need to take control of them, because just by looking at things, I'm pretty sure that you're going to end up spending much less next month.
So coming from somebody who and I've gotten over it now, I force myself to look at, it's not even forcing myself. I just do it out of habit now. I look at my bank accounts every morning. I got into that habit. But I was at one point in time somebody who was like, I know I'm in debt, or I know I'm dealing with some financial strain, so I'll just never go to the mailbox, because if I don't see it, it's not going to be there. And that seems like
the ostrich effect, right? You stick your head underground, and if you don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah, I feel like it's the most mature decision you could make. But I want to make sure we're heading into that hour, so I want to be respectful of your time. You want to do a quick rapid fire, because I do, once again, people can go to financespersonal.ca. They can get all kinds of stuff off the blog, including your top 5 steps for what you can do right now, despite your income level or your income versus your debt ratio, some of the things that are an opportunity to you. I love Jen's tips about sell off the things that you don't need anymore. If you've got 4 TVs in your house, do you really need them? Like, just get rid of it, and whatever money you bring in, put that towards your debt. Okay, so really quickly, let's see if we can do these in really quick ones. So for me, because I have a very literal way, my brain works in very literal ways. So I actually have 3 or 4 bank accounts because I like to have short-term savings, long-term savings, and just, like all the things. Because I need to have them separated, just like your grandma might have had all of those jars and put all the money in. That's how I do it for my business. I do that for my personal as well. It just works better for my brain. My accountant loves it. Do you think that that's a good thing, or do you think people should work out of one account? How do you think people should operate their own finances?
I think it's all on an individual level, but you've got a lot of bank accounts. Why don't you open up a tax-free savings account as well?
Because, that's one of them. I included that.
Okay, so it's not a bank account, it's a tax-free savings account.
Well, it's still an account.
It's different than a bank account.
But it's still an account. Like, it's one more funnel. So.
Yeah, I have, what do I have? I think I have about 5 different accounts. Yeah, and whatever works for you is fine. People have different accounts for a reason. Just make sure that those accounts aren't costing you a lot of money.
Fair enough. Now, what about married couples? Now, I know a couple of people who are living with their partners, married or common law, who keep their accounts separate. They have one account that funnels in for the house and the shared expenses, but they have their paychecks go into their own individual accounts. They share the mutual account, I guess. I find that weird personally. I'm a single person, so perhaps that's why I'm still single. I find that a little weird. But do you like, for couples, like, how do they keep their own accounts? Do they blend accounts? What is that? How do you think?
Okay, so I'm newly married, right? And so I didn't get married when I was, I didn't get married when I was in my 20s. So I'm a little bit different. I do have my own accounts, but I also do have a joint account with my husband as well. And he has his account, and that makes me comfortable. I think women need to have their own accounts.
Okay.
I think it's well, for many reasons. Independence. If you are in a really bad situation, it will help you financially to leave, because a lot of women that are in really abusive relationships have nowhere to go and have no money. So as a safety net, I think every woman needs to have her own account. And the most important is because it gives her financial independence.
Okay. All right. So what about if you're single though? Should you so let's actually stick with the marrieds for a second. Should you have whether you have separate accounts or joint accounts, do you encourage like monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, where you sit down and you're like, all right, babe, this is the situation. This is what our financial situation looks like. Is that a good idea?
I think it's very important for couples to talk about their finances. They need to talk about their debt. They need to talk about their savings, because if you are building a future, it's just like a corporation. A relationship is like a corporation. You need to understand how much money you've got coming in, how much is going out. And if you're working together for your joint future, you need to talk to each other about it. But most couples don't. It's a taboo, right? They don't want to talk about it. And I think a lot of us were raised where, you don't need to know that. You don't need to know that. And so growing up, it's a very uncomfortable topic for people. But I think it's very important for everyone in any relationship, especially if you're in a new relationship too, because you want to know what's happening. I've heard of some friends where started dating somebody, thought, this was it. This was a fantastic relationship, and then realized that this person had so much debt. Well, and the amount of debt was a ridiculous amount. So I think you have to be really transparent, whether you're in a very new relationship, especially you want to know, especially in a new relationship, you want to know if this person's a saver or if they really, really like to spend. Because if you're a saver and they're a saver, then you know that you're going to be, on the same track. So I don't care if it's a week, monthly, but you really need to talk about it.
For sure. And it really, especially when you find out that the person who you think is the love of your life is now 150 grand in debt, and that's going to become your problem. I mean, you have to decide whether you can accept that or whether you can't. That's
well, something. The thing too is, if you break up, right, you may take on half of that debt. So you really have to be careful.
Oh, that happened to me when I was in college. So I was like, 22 years old, and I worked as a server, and I hustled. I've always been a very hard worker. And I was dating a guy who ran up $1,000 in cell phone bills. And, obviously and I was like, well, no, I'll co-sign a loan for you. You just need to get this paid off. Like, 'cause that's like the amount of interest, like it's just becoming out of control. Well, then what did he do? He didn't pay it. And I had people coming after me. And even though, people are like $1,000, whatever. I didn't want to give my $1,000 to his bloody self.
It's your money. You worked hard for it. It's your money.
Yeah. I don't care if it's $1. I don't want to pay for it. So now when you have these meetings, I was hearing from another financial expert where they have in his marriage, they have sort of, and I don't know what the limit is, but they're like, below this limit, I don't need to know about it. This limit and below, buy it. I don't care. But this limit and above, I need to know. So don't come home with a new car. Don't come home with, saying, hey, I just bought a second home in Paris. But, you want to get nails done, or you want to, whatever, get a new set of dishes or whatever. That's okay. Like, should people have a limit, especially talking about those who do have all joint accounts? Should there be a limit of buy this freely? Let's talk about that if it's above that.
Now that all depends, right? Do they have all joint accounts? If they do, then yeah, they've got to discuss absolutely everything, right? But I think if you've got the separate account, anything that, eyelashes or whatever, I don't think that's a major discussion. But do you need a new refrigerator or a roof on the house? Okay, let's work together to try to find the proper company that'll give us the best deal. Two minds are always better than one, right? Another thing I want to bring up, a lot of people look at buying really expensive items. So let's say this item's $1,000, whether it's a coat, a purse, a watch, shoes, whatever it is. People look at these things and think, I really, really want it. But no one has ever sat down and thought about how many hours they have to work to be able to pay off that item. And that's really important as well. Are you making minimum wage? Are you making, $25 an hour? If you are, how many hours do you have to work to pay off that coat? Not just put it on your credit card and pay off the minimum, but to pay it off and make sure that you own it. It's yours.
Yeah, 100%. Same with houses. If you want to go for big things, like we have friends who bought a huge McMansion in one of the GTA suburbs. And we went there, and the front yard and backyard, and they've been there for a while. the front yard and the backyard still isn't done, because when you buy these houses, they don't come with the beautiful landscaping. You get that weird concrete steps that lead up to it. Like, it's very bare minimum. Half the house isn't furnished. And we're like, but why do you need this? Like, you can't even afford to furnish it. Like, literally in one room, there was lawn chairs. And I sound like I'm shaming. And I'm not shaming, because perhaps they're looking at this as an investment for their future, whether they resell it or whatever. But it's so big. And I'm thinking the taxes and the heating and all the things that need to go, you know, and even the time to clean it. Like, so not just your financial obligations, but your actual, like, time is money. How much time do you spend cleaning this thing? So yeah, really taking advantage. But what about when you're single? So I'm a single person. As I said to you, this took a long time for me to go through, me pulling my head out of the sand, which is a kinder way of putting it, pulling my head out of the sand and taking a look at my finance daily, looking at my bank balances. I also had my wallet stolen once, so I have to, like, be very cognizant, and I have to call all the, so I have to be a little bit more cognizant of that. So I'm very careful. I go through daily, like, oh, what's this? Oh, okay, that's that. But then also sitting down and having meetings with yourself about, am I on track for my RSPs, or am I on track for my whatever, or am I, you know, taking a look at, oh, I think my fridge might die in another 2 years. Do I have $1,000 set aside for when my fridge dies, I can go buy another fridge? So I have meetings with myself. They're super entertaining. But should you have then, if you're a single person, like, what do you need to do?
So I just want to backtrack for one moment. COVID has hit women the hardest. The most amount of women are unemployed right now because of COVID. But this is that COVID just brought it out to the surface. The problem is, as women, we make less money than men. So for every dollar a man makes, we make 87 cents to the dollar. So, which means,
and less, you know, if you're somebody, I think that's if you're a white woman. I think if you're somebody who is like of color, you are making even less than that.
Probably. So if a man's making $100,000, we're making 87,000. So in a year, that's leaving $13,000 on the table. And over 10 years, we've walked away from $130,000. So here's the problem. We make less. Women have a very disruptive work career because we're natural caregivers. So we either stay at home and take care of our kids, we take care of our parents, we take care of our siblings. This is what we do, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is we live longer than men. So we need to make the money that we make less, stretch it out longer. So yes, we need to have those conversations with ourselves. We need to sit there and see whether we're on track for our retirement, because 2/3 of Canadians do not have a pension plan. I don't have a pension plan, so I have to make sure that I have enough for when I retire. And I'm sure you don't either. So 2/3 of Canadians don't have a pension plan. We need to make sure that we take care of ourselves. And that's probably the most important thing. So yes, whether you're single, whether you're married, you really need to sit down with yourself and have that conversation with yourself and make sure that you're on track for your future.
You know, it's such a shame that people, I think they're starting to do more like real finance. I mean, you learn algebra in high school, but you don't learn how to balance your books or whatever. I find that's such a shame. And now, what about then meeting with your money managers, whoever that might be, your traditional bank, your credit union, you know, if you have like sort of an outside firm of investment advisors, your accountants, whomever you've got on your financial team, quarterly, only around tax season? Like, how often do you need to talk to these people?
It all depends on whether you're comfortable with your portfolio, right? You get a monthly statement. If you are concerned about what's happening at the month, pick up the phone and call them. There's nothing wrong with that. If not, yearly is okay, every 6 months, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I mean, different people have different anxiety over risk or whatever. So it's whatever makes you feel good, right? If you need the hand holding, call and talk to them.
Okay. So before because now we've gone way over, which is great. Instagram used to cut us off. And honestly, this hour and 18 minutes is like flown right by, Liz.
Oh, wow.
I'm enjoying this so much. But parting words of wisdom. So if somebody's looking to get ahead in their financial life, whatever stage they are, and as you said, you know, I work in the events and hospitality industry, and this has been an industry that has just been rocked by, you know, I've seen friends.
It's horrific.
It's horrific. It's absolutely terrifying. But so if somebody's looking to really just try and be like, all right, look, I need to do my thing. Maybe they can't start a side hustle right now because there's no side hustle to start. I actually believe that there are side hustles that you can start. I think that where there's a will, there's a way. That makes me sound condescending and patronizing, and I'm not, but I think that you can, just like the guy in my elevator was like, hey, I did really well. But let's talk about recapping, because people have been drifting in and out. So we've got eliminate your consumer debt and then start an emergency account.
Mm-hmm.
In your emergency
Are we going back to the 5 practical tips again?
Well, we're going to do that as well, but I just want to like leave people on the parting note. But what you're saying is, if you're sitting in debt and you don't have any savings, first things first, get rid of that consumer debt ASAP.
Yeah, because that thing will drag you down.
Yeah. Yeah. And your credit score as well, which will just be crappy. So just get rid of it. Well, and maybe you go and what about remortgaging your house to pay off consumer debt? An option?
See, if you already have one mortgage or you've paid off your house, remortgaging your house is a big deal. It depends on how old you are. Like if you're 60 or 65 or in your 50s and you've already paid off your mortgage, that's a huge task.
Yeah.
So I'm not a believer of remortgaging to help you pay off debt because you went on a shopping spree.
Right. Or that you didn't go on a shopping spree, but you had no other options, or you felt like you had no other options at the time.
You know what? If you don't have any other options, I mean, you have to do what you have to do, right? Mm-hmm. Bottom line is you have to pay yourself first, right? You have to take care of yourself. And what would make you sleep at night without stress and anxiety? And everyone's situation is very different. So I can't sit there and say, well, yeah, you should do that or you should do that. Everyone has your situation is different than mine, right? So I'm going to do something different than you will.
Right. Okay. But generally speaking, try to eliminate your consumer debt in a way that makes sense for you. Once that debt is gone, maybe you can even take those payments that you're using for your consumer debt, either the entire payments, because you're used to not having them anyway, start putting those towards an emergency fund. But then next step is to build an emergency fund. After that, in the meantime, live within your means. Once again, recap those 5 things, those 5 headlines.
5 practical steps. Stop impulse buying. Save $5 per day. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. Cash is king. Do not pay just the minimum on your credit cards. Make sure that you pay more than the minimum, and don't get sucked into FOMO and YOLO.
Okay. I think this is great. And I think that we didn't even get to I had so many more questions, but I'm going to respect your time. I'm going to respect the viewers' time.
So,
and
can I just say a couple of things before we go?
Absolutely.
I just finished recording season 4 of Finances Personal. It was in a hiatus for 2020 because I couldn't go to the studio, and we've been in lockdown. So I've been speaking every month, twice a month, about financial literacy. So last Friday, I just taped the very first show of season 4, and it's on romance scams. And this is important right now because so many people are at home in lockdown. They're feeling lonely, they're feeling stressed, they're feeling anxious. And this is when all the predators are starting to come out. The 2 sisters that I talked to just wrote a book called Her King the Con. One of the sisters was scammed $150,000, and the other sister contacted the FBI, contacted a private investigator, and helped take her sister away from this guy who had brainwashed her. So that is the first season of Finances Personal. It will be launched on Friday, this Friday. It's a 2-part series because it's quite the incredible story.
Fascinating.
And I also want to have you on the show too. We can talk about entrepreneurship.
Oh, I would love to. I'm a brilliant guest. I'm fascinated.
You would be brilliant. Absolutely. So, so offline, you and I can talk about setting up a date. We'll record it, like this. And, probably in about a month or 2, you'll be on Finances Personal. That'd be lovely.
certainly is personal. I'll tell you everything you need to know. I'll show you
Excellent.
all my scars. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, so Liz, where can people find you? I think you're worth following,
You both were terrific. Thank you, so informative.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Meto.
It was an absolute delight having you on. If people wanted to find out more information, get in touch with you, follow you, I think your Instagram account is private, but where can people learn more about you? It's financeispersonal.ca. Where's the best place to find you?
There on Twitter at ENAUMOVSKI at Naumovski, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty easy to find actually.
Okay, but maybe start at financeispersonal.ca, and that will lead them to all of the places that you are socially.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, enjoy that wine that you clearly didn't have. I'm going to make myself another cocktail because I'm done too.
I drank half of it.
Well, not bad. Not bad. Not bad at all.
It's a big glass.
It was a big glass. It was a big girl pour. All right, guys, listen, I want to say for those of you who are watching either live or if you're watching this on repeat on IGTV, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Once again, I say it every week, but it bears repeating. You could spend your time anywhere, and I am thrilled, delighted, honored, and flattered that you've chosen to spend your time with us. So thank you so much. My name's Erin. I'm the host of this, but also the founder and chief sommelier at the Wine Sisters. I'm here with Elizabeth Naumovski, who is the host of Finance is Personal. You can find that show on YouTube or financeispersonal.ca. And guys, stay safe, stay well, drink way better. And I'm going to see you here next week on Wine Wednesday with the Wine Sisters on Instagram Live. Bye, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much. And subscribe to Finance is Personal on YouTube. Thank you.
Definitely do that. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.